Hello, again. How are you doing? What is up? This is the second video on my channel here that is actually serious, and we're going to be discussing something that isn't as, interesting as something in the last video because it's not just a dumb person online that I want to yell about. It's more so just about economics, and I'll have some visuals on screen right now. You should just be seeing a scrolling view of stuff on X, and that's just, for background stuff to look at because, having a just not moving screen at all would be kind of boring. But enough of that. Let's get into this. So, these are two observations which I've noticed myself just through debate and through basic logic. The first one we're going to go over is something that's already been observed, but it has never been given a name, and so I'll give it a name. The comparison cost hypothesis, which basically says that as the value of a good increases, then the required effort and cost to make an effective and objective comparison of two or more of that good also increases. Now, let's do something like I'll just say really quickly. One of the primary reasons for this is because of specialization, and I'm about to show you right here an example. Let's take a TV, okay? Let's take a TV. A TV is really easy to make a comparison with. If I provided all the details, you can usually decide, because they don't require much knowledge to understand. You can understand pretty much all of the most important specs very easily, and so there's less feeling of sacrificing this for that because you're assigning much more cleaner values to things that make it easier to pick one thing over the other, and so it's much easier to draw quick conclusions over which is better. And of course, the price of something has to be factored in, and it does slightly complicate that, but overall it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to look for different kinds of TVs and then, pick the best one you can find. I think we can all agree with that. Now, let's take a lithography machine. If you don't know what a lithography machine is, there should be one on screen, and what it does is it makes semiconductors, those things that are in like every piece of electronics now. Very important stuff. And I can never understand what this thing is, but that's besides the point, okay? How do you compare this machine? How do you compare two of these machines? Because each of them is unique, and even if you got the exact specifications of two of these beautiful machines, you really, if you don't have any knowledge about it, you don't really know like what to say about it, because all you can really make a actual conclusion about is the price. If you don't know anything about the actual specs beyond like their literal definitions, then you don't know what is most important, what is overvalued, what is undervalued, and so it takes a lot of effort and studying and possibly even cost just from that to understand it. And not only that, but like I said earlier, specialization is a big reason here, and that's because each lithography machine is tailored to the needs of each person or each company that buys them. No company will buy the same lithography machine, and no lithography machines are the same. No two of them are the same, and because of that, there's a good reason to believe that you could never make a good conclusion of the specs and make a good comparison of two of them without very, very broad and wide understanding of lithography machines and what they do. So that's just the first thing I wanted to say. In short, all you need to really know is that if the value of a good is increasing, then the required effort and cost to make an effective and objective comparison or two or more of that good also increases, because there's specialization, there's trade-offs that you don't understand, and sacrificing one thing for another thing. Let's just go back to this like for like a minute. If I gave you all of the information for 3 different lithography machines, and I told you what each of the things was, and I told you what the trade-offs are, you probably couldn't make a good comparison either way, because you still don't actually have a grasp of it. You know the basic stuff, but that doesn't actually tell you a lot. Experience is the greatest teacher, and without any actual experience, you're not going to actually be able to make any good conclusions. That should be a given. But anyways, enough about that. The other observation which I have made is the initial comparison observation. Now, the initial comparison observation is something which I believe no one has really formulated. So I'm not sure, like if it's true, if it's false. But I like to think it's true, you know. But let's actually discuss it. So before we know the actual specs of anything, we must figure them out. Before I can hand you a piece of paper telling you the information about 2 TVs, I must get that information from somewhere. Let's assume that I didn't get it from online anywhere, but I actually did it manually. You can turn on a TV, go to the settings menu, and instantly, or not instantly, but you get the point, you will be able to see all of the settings, and not only all the settings, but also all the information about the TV, and you'll also be able to see like every single little important thing that you may need to put when you're selling it. So that doesn't take a lot of effort at all. It's really basic. But let's take something like a photo lithography machine, or just lithography machine. If you sat me down in front of one of these things, gave me everything I needed to do it, and gave me even like instruction manuals, there's very little chance that I'm going to be able to figure out all of the specs of one of them. A lithography machine is something that is very difficult to make those observations about, not only because of the tedious processes that you have to go through to figure out those exact specs, but also because the most, like, I mean, you could say that, I mean, they come in with the manual, and that's fair because most of the specs are actually going to be determined by the buyer earlier in production. And so, I mean, you could try and get them to do it, but they probably don't remember that. And not only that, but the sole producer of photolithography machines, ASML, legally holds back some information because of it being too sensitive. And so it leaves you little choice but to rely on a ton of guesswork, which even to have a chance of being close requires a ton of effort and a lot of carefulness all along the way. And so the initial cost to figure out these specs, or to even be able to make, in order to be able to present the specs needed to make a comparison, they're incredible. Okay, the amount of work that you have to do in order for there to be a comparison is incredible. Now, right now we don't have this problem because, like I said, ASML is the only company that does this. So we're not trying to figure out all the different specs of these, lithography machines for any real purpose, because no one really needs them. And remember, everyone is buying them to meet their exact specific needs for each one. Now, the final thing that I want to discuss here is how I think that these two are related. So, if each lithography machine is unique, let's do a little go back to the TV thing here. If I buy 2 of the same TV and I go into the settings menu for one of them, and it tells me all of the information. If I buy two of the exact same TV, I will automatically know all of the information about the other TV that I bought just from looking at the information in the settings menu from the first TV. But with lithography machine, that's not the case, because there are thousands of incredibly precise parts that are tailored to the needs of every customer. Now those customers are few, but they always have changing needs, and usually they are asking for something different. And not only that, but something else that we can say demonstrates just how complex these things are is that it could take up to a year for a lithography machine to be installed and fine-tuned exactly to how the buyers want it to be. That amount of time for this machine it makes a lot of sense, but that amount of time to fine-tune clearly shows that each machine can be incredibly unique in how it operates and what it does, what it prioritizes, what it ignores. And so, if each lithography machine is unique, then the comparison cost also must include a lot of the initial comparison cost too, because you're usually never going to have the information just handed out to you. If you are dealing with completely unique products, you must first figure out all the specs, likely on your own, and after that, you then need to have all of the knowledge in the sector to be able to go through and say, okay, we're going to value this over this. This is slightly worth more than this, and for this thing, we will totally sacrifice it in favor of this thing because it is bad. That amount of knowledge and experience required is amazing, okay? But if we don't have unique products, if we don't have any unique products, then the initial comparison doesn't really impact us. So like two TVs. If we're comparing two TVs, then the cost of the initial comparison is not really that difficult, because even if we have to compare them ourselves, like let's say we're testing them, okay, in a facility, and we turn them on, and we turn on two TVs this time, and we can quickly write down all the information that it provides in the settings menu, right? And from there, afterwards, we can take that information and we can look at it and we can make some pretty easy conclusions, given that the specs are standardized and there's standards too for just what people expect in a TV. So it for the uniqueness of a good, if it's unique in respect to how different it is from every other good of the same make. So like if a vase, for example, let's just take a vase. Yeah, a vase is if each vase is unique, or if the uniqueness of each vase increases, then the initial comparison cost increases much more. And now for a thing like a vase, that is much more subjective, and there's less objective figures with that, like a TV, and that like a lithography machine, but both rely on subjective experiences to decide which things are better, which things are worse. But I could keep on going for like another 5 minutes about that, and honestly, I'm pretty happy that I've kept this video at about the same length of my former one. But anyways, yeah, just something interesting that I saw that I kind of wanted to show people. If you if you actually watch this to the end, tell me, because I doubt anyone actually does, and I'd love to be proven wrong. But yeah, that's the end of this video. See you later.